This movie is about charts and data and how it relates to charts. Charts are dynamic. They will change and update for changes in the data that the chart is referencing. But we can make charts even more dynamic by converting the data to a table. We're going to do that, and then we're going to take a look at dealing with empty data points. We have a couple of options when it comes to empty data points. Then we're going to talk about data that's coming from non-contiguous ranges. And finally, we have the ability to hide the data that's feeding the chart if we want to do that. So I've got some data set up here. It's the number of jobs that were added or subtracted from the economy from the years 2007 to 2011. And I sort of broke up the data into three non-contiguous groups, and you'll shortly see why I did that. But the first thing I want to do is create a chart. And I'm going to select this group of data, go to the Insert tab, go to the column drop-down, and then click Clustered Column. And then I'm going to move this down a little bit so I can see all the data. Now, we instantly have a problem, and I showed how to fix this before, but it's worth reviewing. And that is that Excel thinks the year is another category. So it's plotting the year on the axis, just like it plots the values for January, February, March, and so on. So we need to fix that by going to the Select Data dialog box and then selecting just the data that we want to have on the chart, which is January through September. The series references we're going to fix in a minute, but I'm going to left-click OK to accept those changes. And as I said in the opening, that charts are dynamic. If I change one of these numbers, let's say the number of jobs added for January 2007 from 236,000 to 1,000,000, Control Enter, the chart reacts accordingly. It plots that new data point. I'm going to Control Z to undo that. And that dynamic relationship between the charts and the data is really nice, obviously, but we can improve that. We can improve that by converting this region to a table by pressing Control T and then entering. And when I select the chart, the data that the chart is associated with or linked to didn't change. It's still looking from January through September in each of the years, and it still is excluding the year as a category, which the fact that it's excluding the year is fine. But what we haven't yet done is link the chart to the table. The chart is still linked to this region of cells, this range of cells, but it's not linked to the table yet. And the easiest way to tell that is to go to the Design tab, and in the Data group, left-click Select Data, and the Chart Data Range references a range and not a table. So the way we're going to fix that is to reselect the data, and now the chart data range is a structured reference referencing the table. But we're not done yet because the legend has Series 1, Series 2, Series 3. Obviously, that's not very descriptive considering those series represents years. Series 1 being 2007, or the value that's contained in that cell, B8. I'm going to left-click OK. Series 2, editing that, selecting 2008, left-clicking OK. Series 3, editing that, reference to B10, left-clicking OK. We now have this chart linked totally to this table. Left-clicking OK, so that when I append data to this chart, Control X to cut, and pasting in column L to increase the size of this table, enter, October now is graphed on the chart. So I can do the same thing with the other 2 months, Control X, arrowing over twice, entering, and November and December is now plotted on the chart. We also can plot the 2 years, 2010 and 2011, Control X, arrowing up 3 times and entering. And now those 2 years are plotted on the chart. And the nice thing about all of this is that the legend was updated as well. Once we established the connection and defined our legend to be the values that are in column B in that table, Excel not only plots the data points that we append to the bottom of the table, but it also updates the legend accordingly. Now I'm going to delete those 2 years to clean up the chart a little bit. and convert the chart to a line chart by going to the Design tab, change Chart Type, and then double-clicking Line Chart. There are times when we'll have gaps in our data, and I'm going to pick on June with an increase of 75,000 jobs and delete that value, and the line breaks. It ends at May and picks back up in July and skips June altogether. That might be exactly what we want to have happen, but on the other hand, maybe it's not. The place where we can gain some control over determining what happens with missing data is in the Design tab in Chart Tools, the Select Data dialog box at the lower left-hand corner, Hidden and Empty Cells. The default is to show a gap in the line when we have missing data. We can alternatively assign 0 to that missing data point, left-clicking OK, and left-clicking OK again. That may be a bit misleading, but it may be better than the third alternative, which is to connect the data points with a line, left-clicking OK, and then accepting that. And now it looks like June actually has a value. It just happens to be on the line that runs between May and July. Perhaps the default alternative is the best. I'm going to put that value back in of 75,000 jobs. We can also build a chart out of non-contiguous data. I'm going to insert a chart, a column chart, a clustered column chart. I'm going to move it over here. It's got no data in it, so there's nothing plotted. I'm going to go to the Select Data dialog box, select February, hold down the Control key, select a couple other months, May, July, September, and October, and then left-click OK. So I'm not suggesting this would ever be a good idea to do in this particular circumstance when we have a whole year's worth of data, is to randomly select 5 months. But the point is that your data doesn't have to be contiguous for you to plot it on a chart. I'm going to delete that chart by pressing the Delete key, select the first chart that we built, and move it over to the right to show you the default behavior that occurs when you have hidden columns or hidden rows. In this case, it's hidden columns. When I hide those columns, the data that's associated with those months that's in those columns ceases to be plotted on that chart. That's another option that we can control by selecting the chart, going to the Design tab, select Data, left-clicking Hidden and Empty Cells, and checking this checkbox, Show Data in Hidden Rows and Columns. Left-clicking OK, and acknowledging that again. My chart is rebuilt to include the data points that's contained in those hidden columns. What this enables you to do is to hide all of the data and have the chart still plot those data points on the chart. So that's charts and data. We began by looking at the dynamic relationship between the data and the chart, and how when you change the data values, the chart responds accordingly and replots those new values. We can take advantage of that relationship and make that relationship even more dynamic by converting the data range to a table, so that when we append data to the table, our chart responds dynamically to include that new data. We then looked at what we can do with empty data points, where we had 3 options: skip them, make them 0, or continue a line between the data point before and after the missing data point. We looked at non-contiguous data ranges that we can build charts with. And finally, we looked at hiding the data and the fact that if you have hidden columns and rows, those data points won't be plotted on the chart unless you select the option to have them plotted. And once you do that, you can hide all the data that is plotted on your chart should you have the desire to do that.